The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome to County Durham for the very first time on TVI. Today I find myself in Darlington for the first of 24 parishes out here. Behind me you can see some lovely County Durham scenery, and all around this particular place you can see a lot of this stuff because this is on a hill. Welcome to the beautiful village and parish of Sadberge. Sadberge, flat-topped hill. For the first time on TVI, unless you count our visit to Craik a few months ago, all this week we're in County Durham. Welcome to the borough of Darlington, 24 parishes that surround the town of the same name, primarily famous for its significant role in the history of the railways. Darlington was also once known for its linen industry, particularly the manufacture of towels and tablecloths. They weren't made out here in the countryside, but even so, our first run of parishes have plenty more we can talk about. Sadberge has the honour of starting off the entire county. Often mispronounced by non-locals, the name of this one simply means a flat-topped hill, and it's an accurate description of what you'll find if you come here. Located midway between Darlington and Stockton-on-Tees, Sadberge was a small town well known by a few ancient people groups. The most obvious are the Vikings, because that's where the name Sadberge comes from. There are several other places around the country with the same Viking-led influence, like Sedbergh in Cumbria, for example. The Romans also knew this place. In fact, they even had a camp here, the remains of which can still be seen as earthworks in the village's northeastern corner. Being on the line of a Roman road, Sadberge has always been a convenient place for travellers. It remains so because nowadays this village is well positioned for the modern commuter, especially those who make the journey to Teesside every day. There's quite a bit here. It has two pubs, a church, a village hall, an old chapel, and now a disused reservoir too. Let's get moving and see what else is in store. As ever, let's get started by checking out what the place looked like back in 1900. Sadberge is a crossroads settlement located at the point where 5 routes all converge. The main east to west route connects Darlington to Teesside, running as it does through Stockton-on-Tees before reaching Middlesbrough. Another road also runs east to Stockton. Nowadays though, the east to west route is not provided by what you can see here. Running across the parish is the A66, which bypasses the village on its way east to Stockton. The north to south route is also significant here. It's the route of Ricknell Street, an ancient Roman road. Where the two major routes crossed was the centre of Sadberge, and that remains so today, albeit with a lot less traffic than in previous times. As a crossroads village, you can split Sadberge up into 4 quadrants. In addition, the parish also covers a rural area to the south of the modern A66. That's where we'll start. Travelling from the south, one of the first things you'll see before entering the village itself is Sadberge Hall on the left. The hall is not ancient. In fact, it was only 4 years old at the time of that map, having been constructed in 1896. That fact is backed up by way of a date stone on its exterior wall. Sadberge Hall can be defined as a Queen Anne house, a magnificent Grade II listed building erected for the Pease family. They were one of the great Quaker families who were largely responsible for the growth of Darlington and the surrounding area as a major commercial and industrial region. Some of the finest houses in the town itself were built for the family in the 19th and 20th centuries. No surprise then that Quakerism will feature heavily in some of these Darlington episodes. Fun fact too, the Quaker connection is so well known around here that it's why Darlington Football Club are nicknamed the Quakers. Football and history working together once again. Sadberge Hall is approached up a long gravel driveway which terminates at the side of the house. There are many period features still prevalent inside it. These include attractive fireplaces, working shutters, an impressive staircase, and a fine oak ceiling in its dining room. It was all up for sale a few years ago for £3.5 million. A snip if you ask me. So let's continue into Sadberge via Middleton Road. This is the route of Ricknell Street, a Roman road which linked York to South Shields, or so many historians think. Since time began, Sadberge has been on the highest hill for miles around. On a good day, you can see the sea 20 miles to the east at Redcar and the walls of Barnard Castle 20 miles to the west. The Romans were the first to take advantage of this strategic position and marched Ricknell Street straight through it. Few people know of Ricknell Street. Even though it was a well-known route to the average Roman soldier, it was probably only of secondary importance. It certainly wasn't one of their main highways. There are many theories about how it crossed the Tees, but most routes point to Middleton One Row and then on to Sadberge, where tired centurions rested. Okay, we have made it into the village. It's a nice quiet Saturday morning today, just before 6 AM. And I'm beginning in a residential area, so I'm trying to be quiet. Not many people are up yet. But this is a nice area to start because it demonstrates how much Sadberge has grown over the past few years. All these estates never used to be here. The Roman connection can be clearly seen on this next map as we enter the village properly for our main walk. The 1900 map shows the site of a Roman camp. This is the northeastern corner of the village. Of all the areas of Sadberge, this is the one that's altered the most. A lot of this is housing now, and there used to be a school here too. On both sides of Norton Road, there are an array of modern streets, all now built on those old fields. This is the southern side, which has Abbey Road and Dale Road. The northern side is occupied now by Norton Crescent and St Andrew's Park, and from that we'll get a good look at the Roman camp in a minute. Sadberge's location on the route of Roman Road has always made it attractive for travellers, dating back to times some 2,000 years ago. Being positioned at the point where Ricknell Road crosses the main road from Darlington to Teesside, Sadberge was a linchpin village, and it still is. With the modern A66 bypass now providing a great road link between Darlington, Stockton and Middlesbrough, a lot of these houses are occupied by Teesside commuters. The size of the village over time has also reflected this residential importance. Once just clustered around the crossroads, Sadberge has grown, expanding outwards in all directions. The village is now increasingly diverse, but its residents continue to contribute to the enjoyment of community life here. One of the newest areas of housing the village has is St Andrew's Park, seen here off Norton Crescent. This was built in the mid-2000s. St Andrew's Park sits on the site of a former school, which closed in 2004. It was the third school the village has had to its name. The first school was built by the church in the southeastern corner of the churchyard in 1799. That remained open until 1868, when it fell into disrepair. A new school was then built on Darlington Road, and although it closed in the 1970s, it's still in use, as we'll see later. Between the 1970s and 2004, children went to a new school at St Andrew's Close, but as numbers declined, it too would eventually shut down, being replaced by this housing estate. Let's have a look at that Roman camp now, which can be seen from Norton Crescent. After crossing the River Tees, the first stop on Ricknell Street was Sadberge, hence the site of the camp. In addition to the camp, the Romans also had a fort in Sadberge. The site of that is now occupied by the church. The Romans were clever, building such a place on a hill. Should they spot any local tribes advancing up the hill menacingly, they would retreat into the fort and fight off the invaders. After the Romans' departure in 420 AD, Sadberge's lofty position enabled it to continue being a town of strategic importance. Indeed, it was to become the capital of the Tees Valley. Well, I'll tell you something, the Romans would have had a cracking view at this camp. I've got a cracking view right now, to be honest with you. You can see for quite a long way into the distance over there. We're on the sort of eastern side of Darlington here, and in this kind of direction you're looking towards sort of Stockton and Middlesbrough, which are over there. In the other direction is Darlington, sort of beyond these buildings you can see in shot now, kind of between the two. And in the middle it's just an expanse of farmland, although we will be later this week exploring some of that farmland and what lies within it. Now we're moving into the northwestern areas of the village. We're about to explore everything on and around the northern arm of Ricknell Street. A lot of this looks similar now to how it does here. This inn is still very much going. This chapel is not, but it still stands. Over to the west, a tannery is marked II, which is now a house. The inn shown on that map is the Tons. Now from the outside, this looks like any other normal pub, but let me tell you, this is one of the most historic pubs in the north of England. Sadberge was an important judicial centre. In fact, some sources say the village's name comes from the terms Sackberg, meaning the court on the hill or the Hill of Pleas. At first, any sort of court would have been controlled by the Romans at their fort. In later times, judiciary proceedings would be held in more modern buildings. One of those was the Tons. This used to be a county court presided over by the Sheriff of Sadberge. Reputedly, the cellar was once a dungeon connected to a prison over the road by a tunnel. In front of the pub, on an island in the middle of the old Roman road, was the Sheriff of Sadberge's home. He too is said to have been connected to the courthouse by a tunnel. Sadberge's judicial powers allowed for death sentences, and as such, many criminals were executed here after being tried in the Tons. The gibbet, where their punishment was carried out, was on a hill. That hill is now occupied by a Dog's Trust kennels half a mile to the north. Supposedly, another tunnel linked the dungeon to the gibbet. Of course, now Sadberge has no such powers. Modern criminals are tried in Darlington or Durham, but for a long time there was still a lockup in this village. In the second half of the 16th century, Queen Elizabeth imprisoned local Catholics in it who were plotting against her. In the 19th century it became a butcher's shop and was demolished in 1926 to widen the Darlington to Stockton Road. As for the Tons, well, that's still serving beer, stored within the cellar that once held all those condemned criminals. Okay, this is the point where you start to realise just how much on a hill Sadberge actually is, because after you get past the Tons and the village green that you saw there, the road starts to dip downhill quite sharply, in fact, and we're going to follow this for a short way. You can see we've got a house in front of us there. That's nothing really of any interest, but opposite that there's an old Methodist chapel. To the chapel then next. This was built in 1869 and closed in 1991. Today it's in use as a private dwelling, occupying a grassy area between Hillhouse Lane and Chapel Row. Let's head on to Chapel Row next actually, because aside from being an ideal way to get to our next landmark, I reckon it looks pretty. Let's see if you agree. As a rural community, farming was a major local occupation for several centuries. These days, it can no longer be considered as such. There were 8 working farms in and around Sadberge at the turn of the 20th century, but today only 2 remain. In addition, there was also a tannery which provided employment for a lot of people. It produced leather for various purposes, including shoemaking, harness making and machinery. Tanneries were traditionally very smelly places. The tanning process used animal urine because it played a key role in cleaning and softening hides. The practice, whilst it was pretty effective, produced strong and unpleasant odours. One can only imagine the stench this area would have had years ago. Okay, so I've just crossed the village green here from the site of the tannery, which is over there. Come past this flagpole and past these wonderful little sheep here. When I saw these from a distance, I thought to myself, are these actual sheep which have roamed onto the green? They're not, they're you know, statues, but they do look very realistic. There's a few of these, there's a couple outside the tons, and there's some over here as well on this part of the green. The green is split into various bits. There's at least 4 or 5 bits to this, and there's loads of things to see on the green. In fact, there's a stone which will catch towards the end, that's over there, and there's also another memorial behind that stone for Sadberge Airfield, which is a World War I airfield operation for 2 years, 1917 to 1919. And there's loads of little bus shelters around the green as well. There's one over there, and this one here, which is served by a bus, is also a library, village library, book exchange, a very well stocked one at that, by the way. There's loads in there, so yeah, if you come to this one you can fill your boots. All sorts of stuff in here. There's also a parish notice board in here too, and this is where I'll do something which I do every time I come to a village, no matter where it is. If I just perch my camera up here, I'll show you what that is. People in Darlington, you won't know, but when I come to a village, wherever it may be, I find the parish notice board, and on it I leave a card. It's my way of marking that I've actually been to the place. So here's my card, this is what it looks like, and that just basically tells you that I've been to the parish, and that just gets left on the board like that for everybody to see. Our next job is to head west along Darlington Road. This will take in the Red Lion, a former pub that was still going in 1900 but has now closed. In this section we'll also discuss what's become of this old school, and we'll also get a look at this massive reservoir, once capable of holding an enormous amount of water. This is the former Red Lion, which is now a private dwelling. It ceased to exist at some point before 2009, but I can't give you an exact date. There was next to no information available for this now lost pub, so that's all I can really offer you for this one. As we learned earlier, Sadberge has had 3 schools. The second of the 3 was this building on Darlington Road, which closed in the 1970s. It's the only one of the 3 schools that still stands, and today it's the village hall. It houses a very successful preschool, still giving it an educational use. Opened in 1977, this holds many village traditions, such as pantomimes, spring shows, and celebrations of the local May Queen. An important part of community life, it's all run by the Sadberge Village Hall Association. Take note of the area next to the hall as well. Before this became the village hall, Sadberge's residents used another building for their communal needs. Following World War I, there was a campaign in Sadberge to honour those villagers who had made the ultimate sacrifice. To do that, a former guard hut was purchased from Ripon. Made of wood, it became the Sadberge World War I Memorial Institute, and it was built on the piece of land that's now occupied by Bury Court. It was the forerunner to the modern village hall. Next, we have one of the biggest landmarks in Sadberge, the former Reservoir. This was built in 1886 by the Stockton and Middlesbrough Water Board, founded in 1876 by an Act of Parliament. Before the Act, all of Teesside's water was abstracted from the River Tees at Broken Scar on the western side of Darlington and pumped eastwards by the Tees Cottage pumping station. The Act, though, gave the board permission to build 6 reservoirs in Teesdale to quench the thirst of the growing Teesside iron and steel industry. However, building reservoirs was extremely expensive, and the board struggled to raise the money required for all 6. Instead, it decided the best course of action was to build one at Sadberge, the highest point for miles around. When it was full, it could hold 12 million gallons of Tees water. Sadberge and a later neighbouring reservoir at Long Newton, built in 1905, were then used to control the water coming down from Teesdale in the early 20th century. When Long Newton was enlarged in the early 1980s, Sadberge became redundant, and 30 years later there was much debate about what to do with it. Northumbrian Water wanted to build up to 34 homes on the site, whilst the parish council preferred the idea of a nature reserve instead. Its vast curved walls were once a magnet for BMX stunt riders, but now they can't use them anymore. Now, dead opposite the site of the old reservoir, there's a little garden, which is where I've currently parked my bum for a few moments. This is a war memorial garden by the looks of it, because you can see there's a soldier there, silhouette of a soldier. Lovely little part of Sadberge this, and it's got a great view as well. The view at the beginning of this video, which you saw when I was doing the intro, that's what you can see from this garden. Absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to have 5 minutes or so here just to rest and recuperate before we walk on. Our next job is to head towards the church. The final part of the walk sees us take on the southernmost area of the village, dominated by the Church of St Andrew and the moated site next to it. Also note too the Buck Inn on Middleton Road. That's still there and still very much trading. North of that you can see a village green, which has a connection to the old reservoir. St Andrew's Church sits at the highest point of the village, built on the site of a Saxon castle and previous places of worship going back to the 8th century. It's known there was a little Saxon church here once. That was replaced by a larger Norman one in 1266, with the existing one replacing the Norman church in 1831. The fact that there's been a church here for such a long time is hardly surprising. Given this is the highest point for miles around, it was an obvious site for such a building. The porch contains several stones believed to be of Saxon origin, but curiously, there are very few Norman stones here. Most of them can now be found in Darlington. That's because they were sold by the builder of the new church and used to construct a pub in the town and to reinforce the banks of the River Skerne. The churchyard bears some of the names of former village families who have played their part in its community history. Also in the churchyard is a moated site. The moated area is known by the name Hampass, which is now a grassed area used for recreation. How it gets that unusual name is a little complicated, but we'll have a go. Hampass is thought to be so named from its origins in Viking times as a pass, a bridge used to cross the moat, to a ham, which we know today as a home. Therefore, it literally means home bridge. Seeing as it crosses a former moat, you can think of it as a Viking version of a drawbridge. There have been various working buildings on Hampass during its time. In its early years, it was part of Town Farm. Out onto Middleton Road, we next come to the Buck Inn, where horse-drawn carriages would have once stopped on their way north along the old Roman road. It's named after George Buck, a benevolent 18th century landowner. It has 2 bars, one mainly for dining. The Buck Inn was far more than just a pub at one time. Market gardeners, fishmongers and butchers all sold their fresh produce outside it. Now a friendly, traditional English pub overlooking the green, its attractive setting ensures it still has everything the average village local should. It's a supporter of local microbreweries, always having at least one beer from Mithril. They have a monthly quiz and regular live music and race nights too. And here's one final landmark of note, this small green located where Darlington Road and Middleton Road cross. There are no sheep grazing on it these days, but there would have once been. Today on it you can see the Queen Victoria oak tree planted in the centre of the village to commemorate her Golden Jubilee in 1888. This nearby boulder was found during the building of the reservoir. It's thought to date back to the last ice age. It was moved to the green, where it's now known as the Jubilee Stone. Right, so from here it's just a simple case of making our way back to where we started, and that means walking along the Norton Road, which is this one here, and this will take us back to the housing estates where I began about an hour ago. It's taken me about an hour to walk around the lovely village of Sadberge. Beautiful place. It's a lot better than I thought it was going to be, quite frankly. You look at it on the map sometimes and you think, oh, there's not really much there, but then when you actually turn up in the place you find out it's a lot better. So, 1 down, 23 to go. Tomorrow's episode is going to be vastly different to this. Alright, 1 down and 23 to go. That was a pretty good start, and if the rest in Darlington are anything like this, it'll be a good series. Next up, we have a tiny one to visit. Just to the east of Sadberge, the land becomes vastly rural. Within that open countryside are 2 small hamlets that share a parish. Join me again tomorrow to see them. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.